It's time to get into the Inside Edge. The latest about the CBJ and the NHL.
Presented by your Greater Columbus Kia dealers and the new 2019 Kia Sorento. Conquer your mountain.
Here's your hosts of the Inside Edge, Bob McElligott and Jody Shelley.
Welcome to the Inside Edge presented by Kia here on 97.1 The Fan. I'm Bob McElligott, joined by Jody Shelley. The Blue Jackets coming off a loss last night at home to the Pittsburgh Penguins. 5-2 was the final score. Blue Jackets ready for the third game of their 5-game homestand here, however. They'll be playing tomorrow night against the Philadelphia Flyers. Jody, yesterday was extremely disappointing because of what the Blue Jackets had done the entire weekend. They started before the trade deadline by getting Matt Duchene from the Ottawa Senators in Ottawa on Friday. They won that game 3-0. Duchene comes home and makes his home debut at Nationwide Arena on Saturday. The Blue Jackets easily handle a very good San Jose Sharks team. 4-0 was the final in that one. And then they added Ryan Dzingel from Ottawa after the game. On Monday, they bring in goaltender Keith Kincaid from New Jersey and edgy defenseman Adam McQuaid from the New York Rangers. And everybody feels like, man, here you go. You're all set. You have everything you need. And then Pittsburgh comes to town, and unfortunately, Pittsburgh did what Pittsburgh does, and that is beat the Blue Jackets. So it's a completely different mood. It was a completely different mood at the end of that game last night.
Buzzkill is what we call that, Bob, because, everything was fun and exciting. And the Blue Jackets, I thought, coming off one of their most complete performances of this regular season against the San Jose Sharks, where they smothered them, and then you make new additions and the excitement around and the buzz, the national buzz about this team going all in and keeping Panarin and Bobrovsky. Wow, they're going to be legit. And they go out and lose to the Penguins again. No big deal, but it would have been, the script would have been much better if they would have beat the Penguins and still feel good. But now they're back to the video, and they're not feeling as great as they were just even 24 hours ago. But listen, they've made some additions. They're a heck of a hockey team with some great pieces. They're going to need to just clean up a few areas. It was, again, last night, the game against the Penguins. There was only a few things. They were off on a couple things that could have made a big difference. No, but that's Pittsburgh. They seem to do that to you. So no problem. Push on. Game tomorrow against the Flyers, and get these pieces clicking along. This is going to be fun.
But the Blue Jackets, again, at home in front of a sellout crowd, come up short, and that is really starting to bother Blue Jackets head coach John Tortorella. He talked about that earlier today, right after the team practiced.
It's been an inconsistency all year long in our building, and as I said last night, we have no chance if we don't get that straightened out. It was unacceptable how we just waded through. And I thought both teams were kind of doing that. But our building, a team that's banged up in their back end, it's unacceptable how we started that game. And I don't know what happened. But we have no chance. If we don't play better in our home building for 60 minutes, we have no chance.
Of course, when you talk about that starting thing, as dumb as it may sound, look, you had two games where everything went right for you. You win 2 games by shutout once Duchene gets here. Then you get more players. Everybody's walking around on cloud 9, feeling really good. As much as it stinks to lose that game, could it be kind of a reality slap in the face and say, listen, it is not that easy. Here's a reminder. It is just not that easy.
Well, it's a good point, Bobby. We were talking as coaches. What if we beat Pittsburgh 4-0? Well, we think we have all the answers as far as the acquisitions, and we've got the team. I wish we did. I wish we could be saying that, and I'd be trying to tamp that down. But we've got to try to turn it around somehow. That we did not play well. I don't think. I thought the first half of that game, both teams were just. I mean, there weren't many shots. There weren't many chances. But it's our building. It's our team that had some new juice brought to it. It's our team that had a chance to go after a wounded team, and we didn't. That's what was frustrating to me. Having said all that, now maybe we need to realize exactly how we have to play, because it's certainly the way we played last night with the energy level up and down, we're not going to win. And so hopefully it'll wake them up. So it's a point that we have to bring across because that's the way it happened last night.
Jody, from a player's perspective, we've talked about the additions and, how the guys have been so energized. But when it comes to what I just asked John Tortorella about with the whole reality check thing, when you're that high and then all of a sudden you're kind of knocked down that low, as a player, where do you go from there?
You get a little humbled. And I thought that was interesting what John Tortorella brought up with his coaching staff, that if they did beat Pittsburgh 4-0, maybe that would be a problem because they would have thought they would have figured things out and maybe gotten too high. So, listen, I always say it and we always talk about it. The regular season is a process. If you're Canada, it's a process. And you got to figure out what you are by committee. You have to figure out individually where you fit in, and you need to figure out as a team of what you are in situations. So this is one of those moments when you think you're high and you think you figured out your game and you've made additions and the league is going to lay down. No, the league doesn't lay down after the trade deadline. Everyone is going to be ready for you. And the better you are and the more you're talked about, guess what? The more the other team is going to be prepared. So when you get a 3-0 in the game, like Foligno, Atkinson, and Duchesne, you got to bury that. So those things happen for a reason. We're happy it's happening now at the end of February and not the beginning of April. So I really like it. And when I talk about player individuals finding their role, and maybe we'll talk about this in a little bit, but Brandon Dubinsky is an interesting case, and we should come back to that because he's a veteran player who's watched things go on here past the deadline. He's in the lineup, and I have a theory. That's a tease. I have a theory on that.
All right, that's a very good tease. Very good. When you talk about teams coming after you, the team last night in particular has won the Stanley Cup 2 times in the last 3 years. They were just coming off a bad loss in Philadelphia in the outdoor game on Saturday. Matt Murray, their goaltender, had a terrible game at the end in Philadelphia, gave up the final 2 goals, the tying goal and then the winning goal in overtime. He had to wear it after that game. I mean, he stepped up and he said, "It's my fault. I feel terrible. It's on me." He did play much better last night, so maybe it's kind of the confluence of those two things. One team feeling really good about itself and maybe things will come easy, and the other team saying, well, it's twofold. Number one, let's shut these guys up. And, oh, by the way, we have our own business to take care of because yesterday the Penguins were in the Blue Jackets' position today outside the playoffs looking in.
And that's how it goes. And listen, the Penguins understand the urgency of those 2 points, especially when they were behind the Blue Jackets. They're very good situational. And you're right. You're exactly right. As soon as you feel, and we hear Torch talk about this all the time, as soon as you think you have it figured out, or as soon as you feel good about yourself, this league will bite you. And it's still a young team. I think it's very, very on the forefront of their mindset as this season winds down. The way they lost last year's first playoff round to the Washington Capitals. But I also think moments like last night and the feeling today need to not ever be forgotten because the talk all last summer was missed opportunities. Okay, the talk today, missed opportunities. Good goaltending. Okay, there's a pattern there. And I think that more direct and more urgency on every situation around the opposition's net is going to lead to more smiles and results.
I got to ask you this one, and he's a former teammate of yours. He has been the mainstay for this team for a long time, but do you think that there is something with Sergei Bobrovsky and the Pittsburgh Penguins because he just hasn't been able to get over that hump? And I know it's not all him because I'm a goalie defender, but in last night you could say a couple of those shots got tipped and they changed direction. But isn't the fact of the matter, at some point, if you're going to shed that mantra, you just got to figure out a way to win?
I mean, if you're just looking at the record and the results, you would think so. I personally think Sergei is like a robot, and it's just game to game. He just battles through whatever. I don't know. I mean, if you're a fan or if you're looking at the results, you would think, that black and gold are not his favorite colors.
Yeah, right, exactly. And guess what? I don't think he's alone in that. I think it's very easy from a fan standpoint to look and say, what is it about that team that seems to take away the Blue Jackets we know and love?
Well, let's think about the other side of it. The Pittsburgh Penguins against Bobrovsky. they've got a confidence level against them. They scored a couple from the corner. We remember one in particular, a couple from out far. It's not all on Sergei, and you're right. But think about the confidence when you're going up against someone that you might be in their kitchen a little bit. You might have their number. I think that gives Pittsburgh maybe a little more looseness in the offensive zone.
One curve that could have been thrown at the Penguins last night, and you can't do it, and I understand you can't do it, but you know what? Keith Kincaid just came in here.
Why can't you?
Well, let me finish my thought. Keith Kincaid, he has a 3-1 record against Pittsburgh. His goals against average is below 3. Save percentage is over 900 against him. I was talking with Dana Heinze, their equipment manager, yesterday, who you and I worked with many moons ago in the East Coast Hockey League. And he told me, he goes, we can't beat that guy. He always beats us. So when you're talking about mindset of the Pittsburgh Penguins, you have to think when they see Bobrovsky, they think, okay, we'll find a way. With Kincaid, there's a little bit of a mental block there. Now, why can't you do that? I mean, in theory you can, but is that what you want to do to your Vezina-winning goaltender, is immediately acquire a guy from another team going up in a really big game and take him out of the lineup? To me, that would fall under the old how is that going to leave him mentally from now to the end of the year?
I wouldn't overthink it. I honestly think that I was talking to the traveling party yesterday, the media, much like you with Dana Heinze, and the comment was Bobrovsky. They feel confident in themselves when they see Bobrovsky. Kincaid, sure, if they feel like they can't beat him, why not use him?
It'll be interesting, and we're going to find out because they have 2 meetings over the course of the next 11 days. So if that is anybody's thought, the opportunity is coming up again very quickly. As a matter of fact, next Thursday in Pittsburgh. Yeah,
and you know what? It's no disrespect to the situation. It's just if you're looking at the pure results and the way the mindset is of the Penguins, Sergei is a competitor. He wants nothing more than to beat the Penguins himself. But you know what? Maybe if he sits one out and Kincaid does all right, you're onto something.
All right. Well, as I said, we're going to find out. The opportunities will be there in the next couple of days. Coming up next, we're going to go back to Jody's tease about Brandon Dubinsky and where he is on this team and how he has accepted his role and what kind of a factor he can be the rest of the way for the Columbus Blue Jackets. That is all coming up. I got to go to a break. I can't even talk anymore. It's all coming up as the Inside Edge presented by Kia continues on 97.1 The Fan. Welcome back to the Inside Edge presented by Kia here on 97.1 The Fan. The Blue Jackets losing last night to Pittsburgh by the score of 5-2 at Nationwide Arena. They're back at home tomorrow night. The Philadelphia Flyers are coming to town to take on the Blue Jackets. It'll be the last time the Blue Jackets and the Flyers get together this season, and the Flyers have been hot in the last couple of weeks. They did make a move at the trade deadline. We'll talk all about that as we go on. But right now I want to come back, Jody, to your comment about Brandon Dubinsky, where he is, what he's doing, what his role is on this team right now, because it has changed. And it's, it changed to start the year, and now it's changed, I don't know if I want to say drastically, but there has been an adjustment in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, he's a veteran guy. He's the oldest player in the locker room. He's a guy that, when you think about it, face-offs were his specialty, and he was doing it any chance he could get in the defensive zone, critical face-offs, critical moments. That was his specialty, is to get out there, jump over the boards, take off one of the players from the line, usually Panarin on that top line, snap back the face-off, and then get off the ice. Since he's come back, since he's played a couple games, now Matt Duchene is in the fold, and he is very good on the draws. Boone Jenner has elevated his position on the dot, and we've even seen Cam Atkinson take a few on the right side. And so what is Brandon Dubinsky doing? Veteran player, understands the importance of making yourself relevant every single shift you can, any situation you can. He's found a role and a line with a young speedster in Robinson and Riley Nash, a veteran player who needs to find his game, and they have been impressive. And I've noticed with Brandon Dubinsky, he's taking a physical role. Last night, Sidney Crosby, he did not turn down the opportunity to hit Sidney at least once good. The night before, it was the San Jose Sharks. Erik Karlsson, one of their speedsters, one of their guys that wants room out there. He put him into the boards with a solid impact the other night. Might have been one of the reasons why he left the game. So Brandon now, we're seeing it way more than we did earlier this season. And when you watch him out there, he is throwing the body almost every single shift. I think he had 5 hits last night. I'm not sure what he had the previous game. But that is a different role than we've seen for Brandon, and that's what Brandon has to bring. That fourth line, I know they're getting a lot of chances. They're going to score. But what he understands better than anybody is the competition. And if Brandon gets out, it's going to be hard for him to get back in. So this is what he's done, and I think he's done an excellent job with Robinson. I know he's done a nice job with Nash. And I think more importantly, as an individual, he's found a way to stay on top of his game in the lineup and reinvent himself, because they took the faceoffs away. And that's not a good feeling when that's your lifeline, you think. So he's moved on, and he's made an impact. And I think he's been very noticeable every shift, and I think that's a credit to him.
Yeah, and by the way, we're going to talk with his line mate, Eric Robinson, coming up here in just a few minutes on the show. I've got to ask you this, because you know Sidney Crosby. You guys are both former Halifax Mooseheads, so you have that bond for life, right? But anyway.
It's a one-way street, yeah.
But anyway, in all seriousness, you know him, you've talked to him, and there is no love lost between him and Brandon Dubinsky. Have you ever had a conversation with Sid about Brandon?
No, I haven't. I never have. I did about Scott Hartnell when the Blue Jackets picked him up, and Sidney was amazed that we could have got him. And, he's a player you would think Crosby would hate to play against too. But Crosby's a competitor. I mean, he's a guy that probably likes having more of those guys around than playing against them. A smart guy. But no, I've never spoken to him about Brandon Dubinsky.
No, that's interesting. I was hoping you had some great stories, but
I could make one up. But
yeah,
no.
Well, yeah, it would probably be believable too, as a matter of fact. But to go back to talking about Brandon and playing with that the physical attributes that he is right now, I mean, that was his game for a long, long time. Getting under people's skin, finishing his hits, and I know when you get older, it's probably not as fun to go through that, because you're probably a lot more sore the very next day. But again, it's about that adapting and finding a way. And the best thing about Brandon Dubinsky is no matter what, he's in it to win it. I mean, he wants to be a factor. If it's a small factor, fine. If it's a big factor, that's great. But he wants to be part of what's going on.
There's a lot of pride there with that man, and it has to do with not only the image of him on the outside, but how he feels and how he's accepted by his teammates and where he fits in. And that's with any competitor and any athlete. So Brandon Dubinsky, I think, honestly, it's putting that ego aside and saying, oh, I should be taking the face-offs. I should be the guy out there instead of this guy. Taking yourself out of it as a factor and saying, you know what? I'm going to focus all my energy on I'm still on this fourth line. I'm on the wing, and I'm going to make an impact with these two guys. And that's one of the smartest things, is getting with those guys and talking with Robinson and how he can make Robinson valuable. That's the value, is figuring out that if this line doesn't work, I'm not going to play. So he's a smart guy in organizing that line, and he's also smart in saying and showing us that his role is going to be very defined. And you're right, back to the old Dubinsky. And I have a theory on that too, because, listen, no one wants to be that disliked when you're the agitator. You're the guy that's getting under the skin of everyone. It's hard. It's a tough role to be in. It's much like a fighter. If a fighter can graduate to just a player, it's amazing. You're living in a great existence. So that's what you want to graduate to, be just a player or just a playmaker or just the guy that wins the faceoffs. But for Brandon to go back and reinvent himself to that physical presence, hard to play against, taking on the superstars and hitting them, I think it's a great thing. And I also like how that line can play against the top line of the opposition. There's experience there and speed. That's an asset for this team moving forward. They're going to be a huge impact in this run and when they get in the playoffs.
And speaking of that experience, on the other side, you've got Eric Robinson, rookie on one side. You've got Riley Nash on the other side. And we've talked about him throughout the course of the year. He gets signed to a nice contract over the summer. He hasn't produced offensively the way that he wants to produce. I think one thing that's unfair, and I'll be the first one to tell you that I forget about it because I'm looking for him to score goals. He had a great A chance last night. Matt Murray stopped him in that chance. But how many times is Riley Nash out of position defensively? How many times is he there to make a play? And how much do you think it helps him and Dubinski, the fact that they're both on the same line and they're both trying to find a way to stay relevant and make sure that they stay in that lineup?
Well, it's I'm going to put it this way. It sounds like I'm struggling on what I think about this, but I'm going to put it this way. It is really nice to have Riley Nash here right now because this season's winding down. There's a responsibility factor, and there's also a factor when the top lines aren't rolling and buzzing and playing their best, which happens. We saw it last night. There's a way of showing the team how to play when the bottom six are patiently waiting to get on the ice and they go out there and do it the right way every single shift. And I think who led the way in that department last night was that line, Robinson, Nash, and Dubinsky. And that is it's just a nice reminder when you are expecting to go on the ice, but you're sitting because you didn't quite do it right, and that line is out there. And I think that those guys take a lot of pride in that too. So, yeah, it's you're right. And I forget your question, but that's how I'm going to answer that.
You're not the only one that's ever forgotten my questions. Believe I usually forget my question, actually. Another guy who has had to go through some adjustments here, although last night he only had to do it for like a period, and then he was back where he's been all year, is Pierre Luc Dubois. I'm sure it was a very tough situation for him when Matt Duchene gets acquired to all of a sudden be taken off a line with Cam Atkinson and Artemi Panarin, a line he's been on essentially for 2 years, a guy that's been asked to carry so much of the load on this team, probably too much throughout the course of this season. But he's been asked to do it. He's done it to the best of his ability. John Tortorella has said he has slipped or dipped, I should say, in the past couple of weeks, which is true. But he's a 20-year-old that is really getting succumbed a little bit by the grind of the National Hockey League. So for you and I to sit here and say, hey, it's great for Pierre Luc Dubois, Matt Duchene comes in, that'll take some minutes, that'll keep him fresh. In his mind, he's going, this sucks. I'm not on the top line anymore. I'm not with the guys that I've really made a living with here in the last 2 years. But, he's taken it in stride, and this will be a good lesson for him, won't it?
Well, yeah, I think slipped and dipped. I mean, that's really what's happened. He's carried a lot of the weight. He's learned a big lesson. He did get reunited with Atkinson and Panarin. He's still that way today after the practice. He will start the game like that tomorrow, it looks like. It's good for him. I'm not worried about this guy at all. What he's shown this organization, he doesn't even know what he's going through right now. And that's the value of that. He's going to look back at this year, and he's going to figure out that, hey, the rigors of the season are going to catch up with me. Here they are in my face. And last year I remember how I dealt with it. I'm going to continue to deal with it this year. It's a great thing to back him off a little bit. It's a great thing to not have to put him in that top matchup situation and be the focus of the opposition. It's also good to spread it out a little bit. Let Duchene get excited about playing with those guys, but then take a little bit off Duchene and let him play with guys like Dzingel, who are thrilled to play with Duchene, and Bjorkstrand. Think about that situation. So I like Dubois, and it's a healthy situation.
And you talk about Oliver Bjorkstrand. Ryan Dzingel comes from Ottawa. He had played with Matt Duchene. He's got that part figured out. There's no question about that. But Bjorkstrand, we saw him get a goal last night. To me, that's a guy that really has a chance to step up. And the Blue Jackets have been waiting for him to step up, waiting for him to score more goals. If he doesn't score more goals playing with either Pierre Luc Dubois or with Matt Duchene, and maybe especially Matt Duchene, I will be shocked.
There are parts of the game that you're relied upon individually to win a battle, make a play, make the pass on the tape, defend a proper way. But there are also players and situations in this game where you're a complementary piece to a player who plays a certain way, and I think Bjorkstrand is that guy. But I think it's taken some time, and it's impressive what the coaching staff has done, because they've asked these guys to battle away from the puck. And what does that mean? It means that individual game is on you, but when you're a part of the line in the offensive zone, like we saw last night, Dzingel across the zone to Bjorkstrand, the neutral zone to Bjorkstrand. Bjorkstrand whips it at the net with speed and scores. It's awesome. And that's what these guys are going to find, is that a guy like Bjorkstrand is complimentary. Don't count out Wenberg. He's a player that we've been waiting on all season. He's a player that's so reliable defensively. He's a player that needs to play with one of these guys they just picked up, and he will be effective. So there's a lot of – listen – there's a lot of exciting pieces that are waiting to get in, and I think Wenberg will be one of these guys that rises at the end, much like Riley Nash, who's in, but is going to be relied upon as the temperature goes up.
Well, coming up next, we're going to talk to a guy that's excited not only just to be here, but to be in this lineup. You mentioned Alexander Wenberg. Right now, he's on the outside looking in. Eric Robinson, he's on the inside. He's not looking out. He just wants to look straight ahead and keep going to the net. Jody and I will talk with the Blue Jackets' young rookie winger right after this as the Inside Edge presented by Kia continues on 97.1 The Fan. Welcome back to the Inside Edge presented by Kia. The Blue Jackets are getting set for a game tomorrow night against the Philadelphia Flyers at Nationwide Arena. Earlier today, Jody and I had a chance to catch up with a guy that grew up watching the Philadelphia Flyers and is looking forward to playing against them tomorrow night, and that's rookie forward Eric Robinson. Eric, you've had the opportunity now to get in this lineup and kind of solidify yourself a little bit, and I know that everything's on a day-to-day basis, but really nice job from you so far. How comfortable do you feel playing with Brandon Dubinsky and Riley Nash and in the role that you're in right now?
Yeah, it's been pretty good to play with those guys. Just talking to a couple veteran guys, getting to play with them every night has been great for me. They're two responsible guys, but they have offensive ability too. So I think we've played responsibly in the defensive zone, but I think we've created chances too. Hopefully we're able to find a little bit of production soon because I think we've had some chances.
Now, no offense to those guys, but I think you've got the best wheels on that line. You're the speediest guy on that line. How much do you try to use that, and how much have you guys talked about, where your strengths and weaknesses are and how it can benefit everybody?
Yeah, I've heard from Duby a bunch, every game, just keep moving your feet. He obviously sees something that, that's going to help me if I'm moving my feet. If we're chipping pucks out and I'm able to get to it first, I think it can help our forecheck.
And Dubinsky obviously understands that helps him too. I mean, you guys have a good line. He's got a role there. And I'm wondering, trade deadline day for a guy like you who's played under 10 games in the league, that's happening. Changes are happening. What's going through your mind?
Yeah, it's new. It's new to me. I've never experienced it. Coming in my first year here, I've never really been a part of anything like it. So, like you said, I'm kind of just sitting back. I don't know what's going to happen. Are we going to get more forwards in? Is there going to be room? I'm just kind of waiting, staying patient, and trying not to think too much into it.
Were you nervous?
Yeah, a little bit, I guess. You bring in some guys, there might not be space. But like I said, tried my best to keep my mind off it.
You've done a great job of just really taking care of your business, it looks like, on the ice. Is there someone that's helped you with that, or is there people you talk to, or is that just what you do when you go to a new team?
I'm just, trying to play the same way I always do anywhere. Play a smart, responsible, 200-foot game. That's just what I'm focused on every night, no matter where I am.
Yeah, well, you're doing a great job, and it speaks a lot to what you've done to be in this situation and still in the lineup. You got to be excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. Every game's an opportunity, so I hope I can just keep playing well and solidify it even more.
Talking with Eric Robinson of the Blue Jackets, and what a year it's been for you, huh? I mean, you just come out of Princeton, all of a sudden you sign with the Blue Jackets, you get a little taste of the NHL last year, big taste of the AHL this year, and now here you are. Do you ever wake up in Columbus here and pinch yourself and make sure it's not just a dream sometimes?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a whirlwind. It's crazy. Graduated less than a year ago. I didn't know what the opportunity was going to be after school, so to be in the position I am, I'm really fortunate and blessed, and I definitely wake up, pretty happy every day I get to come to the rink here in Columbus.
I wanted to ask you this question because all the time I was in the minor leagues, all the guys that went to the Ivy League schools, when they would come in, they always got picked on by the other guys about how smart you are. Oh, we're stupid. You're the smartest guy in the room. Does that stuff still go on?
Yeah, well, every time I meet someone, and we talk about where we played or whatever, oh, so you're one of the smart ones. And I usually joke and say, no, not really. It just got in because of hockey, so.
No, you're one of the smart ones. You found a way to get here in less than a year, so that qualifies.
I don't know about that. But.
I'm wondering, to where you are now, to go back to your first game at the end of the year last year in Nashville, do you feel much more confident? It's got to be amazing to look back and feel how much more a little experience has helped you to get where you are and be in this position in a comfortable, confident way.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a little bit of experience. It's not too much, but I think anything helps, and helps in a big way because that game in Nashville, if I think back, it felt like like a raffle I won that I was able to play in the game. So now that it's regular season, playoff push here with some important games that I get to play in, it feels more real, and I think that's more of a comfortable feeling for me. I feel more confident going into each game as well.
Talk about what it's the difference, and what's the biggest difference you've noticed as far as professional and college hockey?
I think it's just more structured. College hockey, it's not entirely like everyone's going to be in the right spot at the right time. Passes are, probably going a little bit more erratic. And then obviously the speed, because everything is so structured, everything, happens at a much quicker pace. You got to know what you're doing with the puck before you get it. You don't have a lot of time when you get it, or, if you don't have a play ready, you're probably going to turn it over. It's going back the other way. And the difference here is if it's going the other way, there's a good chance it ends up in the back of your net with the skill and professional level. So, you got to make sure you're taking care of those things.
Let me ask you, what did you study in school? Like, if you weren't a hockey player right now and you had graduated, what would you be doing if you weren't sitting here talking to the two of us? And maybe you'd rather be doing anything except talking to the two of us. But what would you be doing?
No, I wouldn't rather be anywhere but right here, trust me. I was a history major, so my school didn't have business or anything or marketing, so I just did history because a lot of guys go into business after studying history at Princeton. So, yeah, probably just something, management position or something, I don't know. All
right, what was your, majoring in history? What was, world history, American history, the whole 9 yards? What did you enjoy the most?
You kind of had to, pick a class from each section of the world at some point during your time there. But I ended up writing my thesis, which is kind of, the one you pick to study the most, just on American history.
Any particular points of American history that are favorites of yours? I mean, you're from New Jersey, close to Philly. I mean, birth of the nation kind of happens there.
Yeah, you're kind of putting me on the spot here. I'm trying to think about the year that was and what it all happened. Yeah. I think the more recent history was probably the most interesting to me. I wrote my thesis, like I said, on American 20th century, so not too long ago.
See, I don't want to push it too much, Jody, because what he considers to be history, I'd consider to be just yesterday because I lived through it, so I got to be careful on that.
I want to know about the Flyers. Were they a favorite team growing up?
Yeah, they were my team. My parents both grew up in Southwest Philly. My brother and I were both born there, and then we lived in South Jersey. So, yeah, growing up, season tickets for my parents, as many games as I could go to. Jody Shelley, one of my favorite players.
See, that's history.
Yeah. Well played, Bob. But who were some of the players? You had Danny Briere. You had a lot of good players that were very visible. Sam Gagner, I think, was there. Or, no, Simon Gagner. Was he one of your favorites?
Yeah. As a younger kid, Jeremy Roenick was my favorite. But then, as I got a bit older, it was, Gagner, Briere, even Drew, as he, started coming to the league. So a lot of guys I could look up to there. Yeah.
Did you ever go to practice in Voorhees and watch?
Yeah, that's 5 minutes from my house. So I had been there a few times. I was actually pretty close family friends with the Stevenses. So, I was pretty fortunate to be able to get to a few games with Johnny and Nolan Stevens, get to meet some of the guys after the games. So that was always pretty cool as a kid.
That's awesome. And do you remember the first time you met a Flyer?
No, I probably was pretty young. I can't remember anything right now.
Do you have any prominent autographs from back in that time of any guys?
Yeah, I get a few JR ones that I used to collect his hockey cards, so a few of them I had autographed, yeah.
So when you go into the game tomorrow, I mean, this is the surreal part of it, right? Here you are in the NHL, you're going to line up against the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yeah, no, it definitely is surreal. Just another moment where you kind of, smile to yourself, but then you got to take care of business.
Speaking of taking care of business, when you were here last year and you played in that Nashville game, everything was set. You were going to be in the playoffs. Everybody knew that. After the loss to Pittsburgh, there's questions again. You're on the outside looking in. It's going to be a tight race for the next 20 games. What is the whole sense and the business-like atmosphere here in this dressing room?
Yeah, I think it's exactly like you said. We're just, trying to take care of business. We know it's a pretty tight race here. Nothing is guaranteed. It's going to be, tight down to the wire. So, these divisional games are huge for us. I'm just here trying to, help that push as much as I can.
Do you have any – I'm going back to the Flyers because I love the Flyers. Do you have any family and friends in here tomorrow to watch this big game?
I don't think they'll be here tomorrow, but I think they're saving it. We play in New Jersey next week, so I'll probably have a good crew there.
Well, good. We'll enjoy that game tomorrow. It'll be it's always fun in warm-up, right? To see you take a peek on the other side and see who's over there sometimes?
Sometimes, yeah. I try not to. Last night was Sid, but I had already played him in preseason, so
It's all old hat now. Sid, that's old hat.
yeah, I had already gotten that stare out of the way during the preseason.
One last thing for you. The new guys that have come in here, you get some new teammates here, and as in the early days, you should look around. Who's the guy that I don't want to say impresses you the most, but no, how fortunate do you feel that you're part of this team when they bring in the influx of talent like they did here in the last 4 days?
Yeah, it's pretty special. Just in the few days being able to watch Dutchie here has been pretty great. He's been in the league a while, played a lot of years. Had a lot of successful seasons, and to see him out there, before half-hour practice, after half-hour practice, putting in the same work that the new guys are, or the young guys, I guess. It's pretty impressive and definitely motivating.
And he's going to help you find a new stick, right?
Yeah, he says there's a little bit wrong with mine, so I'm going to take his word for it and listen to what he has to say. And then funny, actually, Zinger is a former roommate of my brother's. They played in Binghamton together and lived together for a year or two, so I'm already pretty familiar with him, so it's kind of come full circle here.
So you got all the stories on him already, none that can be aired.
Yeah, I got all the chirps from my brother, and then he's chirping my brother to me, so it's kind of funny.
Eric, thanks so much for taking a couple of minutes with us here today. It's been fun to watch you play, man. Best of luck tomorrow night against Philly.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
That is Blue Jackets forward Eric Robinson. Stay tuned. We have more of the Inside Edge presented by Kia coming your way next on 97.1 The Fan. Heading down the final stretch of this week's The Inside Edge presented by Kia here on 97.1 The Fan. The Blue Jackets are getting set for another Metropolitan Division matchup tomorrow night at Nationwide Arena when they take on the Philadelphia Flyers. Jody, the Flyers this week made a trade. Wayne Simmons was a guy that was all year it was rumored that he wasn't going to be there anymore. They were going to trade him somewhere. It went down to deadline day. They sent him to the Nashville Predators, and they got back. Who'd they get back for him?
They got
Hartman,
yeah, from Nashville.
Right, so they get Hartman back from Nashville. Simmons is out. That's really the only change that they made, although there was big change in goal because Carter Hart, their young stud goaltender who they called up earlier in the year and has done a great job for them, is injured. Brian Elliott is back. As a matter of fact, Brian Elliott played in the Stadium Series game against Pittsburgh to get the win on Saturday. But the Philadelphia Flyers, the game that they're going to play tomorrow night could be, well, maybe it's not going to be the season, but it's pretty close. They are 6 points behind the Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets are just on the outside of the playoffs looking to get in. As desperate as the Blue Jackets are to get points, the Philadelphia Flyers are 3 times as desperate.
Well, yeah, this is for them, this is all in. I mean, they've fought and scratched and clawed to be in this position. 6 points out, and they're playing a team that they're chasing. They're right behind the Blue Jackets. So they win tomorrow night, they're 4 points behind. That's exactly what the conversation is in the room. So they're either 8 back or they're 4 back, and that's why it's a 4-point game. And the Blue Jackets in the Metropolitan Division here right now, this is crucial. And coming off a tough loss against the Penguins, at home again for the Blue Jackets, then with 2 Western Conference games coming up with a 1 o'clock Saturday, which is always strange. And it's the Oilers with McDavid, who's back from his suspension, by the way. And then the Winnipeg Jets on Sunday night. So, and then it's back out to the Metro again with New Jersey, I believe, next week. And maybe another, of course. I could have just sent Pittsburgh. I could have just said Pittsburgh on a guess, right? And guessed it because it's 2 more in the next 11 days. But, yeah, it's a wild schedule right now. And this is going to be quite a night tomorrow night against those Flyers.
You were a guy that weeks ago said, don't count the Flyers out. They're going to get back into this. And I thought you were crazy. But your Philadelphia ties proved correct. And you know very well guys like Claude Giroux and Jake Voracek, but especially Giroux, the ultimate competitor. I'm sure he was embarrassed where they were earlier in the season, and he kind of leads the charge, doesn't he?
He does, and they had Carter Hart come in, the young goaltender. He's 20 years old. They rallied around him. He made some big saves. They've dressed 6 goalies this year, Bob. I mean, that's not great. But you're right. Giroux's at the top, Couturier and Voracek are their guys. And, of course, they picked up Van Riemsdyk in the offseason He's a player that's starting to heat up. He had a big goal in that outdoor game that they played the other night in front of 70,000 almost in that outdoor stadium. So, no, you can't count them out. They're a team that has a lot of pride, a lot of pressure, and they got something pretty special going on right now in that locker room.
When you look at the Eastern Conference standings, you've got the two wildcard teams right now are Montreal and Carolina. For months, I'm waiting for the Carolina Hurricanes to disappear from the scene. They haven't done it. Now they're rallying around the bunch of jerks slogan. And that might sound stupid, but you pick rallying points in different things throughout the course of the year, and they've embraced that whole thing, and they're winning games. They had a huge win last night. And you've got Montreal. They had a huge win, too, against Detroit. But can either or both of those teams stay in this thing to the very end, do you think?
I don't think Carolina stays in, and I'll tell you what I think. I think it's goaltending and experience. Goaltending gets the Canadians in, experience gets the Penguins in, and the Blue Jackets will also be in. I don't think Carolina can do it. And I said the same thing about the Islanders. Look at them, but they've found a structure and a goaltending tandem that's rejuvenated their careers. Career backups that are now doing some amazing things there, and their goal differential is plus 30. So they're scoring goals plus defending, or they're keeping them way more out than they're giving up, obviously. And then the Capitals are going to get in. I think those four teams: Montreal, Pittsburgh, Columbus, Carolina. Montreal, Carolina. Carolina is the team that's out.
When you talk about the Islanders, too, the goal differential is great. What they've done all regular season is great. I'll be interested to see what happens when they get to the playoffs. And they have some guys with playoff experience, but sometimes you can go through the regular season with no pressure and no expectations, and the minute there are expectations, things change.
Yeah, that's it. And I think as you see these teams that have made the adjustments to their locker room, as you see the schedule get tight, as you see teams like the Blue Jackets are going to see tomorrow who are in a desperate situation, as teams get their level risen as far as the Blue Jackets, they're now one of the targets, I think, because everyone's gone out and watched these guys make the acquisitions. Teams are going to come in and bring a little extra for that. So things get tight, things get hot. There's going to be a lot of pressure, and you're right. That changes a few things.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes as it goes along. But as we get here to the end of February, the Blue Jackets looking to get themselves back into the playoff picture. Philadelphia Flyers are in town tomorrow night, 7 o'clock face-off at Nationwide Arena. And as Jody mentioned, Saturday is a 1 o'clock game. Great day to bring the family on a Saturday afternoon to Nationwide Arena and see one of the best, if not the best young player in the National Hockey League, and Connor McDavid for the Edmonton Oilers. And that's a team that has been struggling this year. The Blue Jackets, I'm sure, have that marked on the calendar. Look, let's get a win against Philly, and let's take care of this Edmonton team. And then Winnipeg will be here on Sunday night to close out this homestand for the Blue Jackets. We'd like to thank Eric Robinson for taking some time with us here today on the Inside Edge, presented by Kia. We'll get set for tomorrow night's game between the Blue Jackets and the Philadelphia Flyers. For Jody Shelley, I'm Bob McElligott. Thanks for listening to 97.1 The Fan.